I'm interested in your perspective of how do you think the judiciary got to where it is?
How it got to where it is. For me, I think democracy contributed to the rot in the system. And when I say democracy, I'm looking at the involvement of politicians and also the economic terrain that we suddenly found ourselves. Some years ago, when things were relatively good, you could hardly sit and discuss corruption. The economic downturn or the misfortune of Nigeria has also contributed to the corruption that we're now talking about vis-a-vis the judiciary.
But from the look of things now, because if the commission goes ahead and proves its case, how do you think that would look?
No, it's very easy. For me, it's not even a question of can the commission be restrained from doing that. No, you can't. You can't restrain the commission from investigating the judges. If the commission is satisfied after investigating the judges that indeed they're culpable, a report will be made to the National Judicial Council. The National Judicial Council will take it off from there and confront justice. You see, when we talk about all of it, we tend to discuss it as if it has not happened before. Under Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Justice Kayode Esho was saddled with the report of the responsibility of sanitizing the judiciary. And some judges are you aware that there was a particular judge who was sitting as a high court judge and hadn't gone to law school? Was sitting as a high court judge and had not gone to law school.
Not even a grade 3 magistrate court.
He had not gone to law school, and he was a high court judge. It was on the basis of the Esho panel report that all these things came up about corruption on the bench. It was Esho's panel, and some judges were indicted and were asked to go. If you go back in time, under Muritala Mohammed too, some judges were dismissed on account of corruption. Corruption has done. It's just that now, because of our economic downturn, it has come to a point where we could no longer understand why this is like this.
Does it mean that the disciplinary framework in the judiciary is getting weaker?
I don't think so. The challenge, like I said, a lot of times those who ought to take advantage, we're also very, very, should I use the word weak in terms of allowing justice to run its course. Oh, Mokwe is I don't want to ruin her career. I don't want to ruin her career. Let it not be said that I was the one that was responsible for her dismissal from the bench. I know she's corrupt. I know she has enriched herself. But if I take that step, what do people say? I'm sorry for using you as an example. You understand? That's the general perception and that's our attitude. A man is corrupt. Justice Belgore said something. He said a corrupt judge is dangerous to the system. Dangerous, not just to the system, also to his family. And so what that means is you must not allow a corrupt judge to continue to sit on the bench. If a judge is corrupt, it must be shown the way out.
Yeah, but how do they reconcile that? Because members of the society look up to them as a last hope. They look up to them saying, listen, when we get there, we know justice will be served.
It's the same society that also corrupts them. It's a society that also pollutes them. Are you also aware that sometimes societal pressure can also make a judge to be corrupt? A particular judge who is retired of the Supreme Court said one day that there was the case of a judge, upright, committed, sterling qualities, no room for corruption, unbiased. He was seated in his office, but he didn't have money. His wife came to the chambers to ask for money. The children came back from school. School fees was due. And now a man came around to discuss certain things with him and then to appreciate him, as we say in the Nigerian context. He now suddenly realized that this is the money that he would have collected from the man. He would have been able to pay his children's school fees, would have had to give his wife money. Then sometimes this craze about where you live, what you drive, what you wear, how you travel, what class you travel with, and all of that also fuels corruption. So when a man is under this kind of pressure, Nigerians expect you that once you're in government, for instance, they expect certain basic things in your life to see. Your status must change. So even if you now decide to be upright, once you're there, you're bound to be polluted. You're bound to be corrupt. Because you'll be under a lot of pressure. And so these are things that you cannot resist. But if you're in a system where your needs are being addressed, the reason why in other climes, the other day I was reading in one of the papers, some members of the House of Commons in the UK who use their offices to help themselves. How much are we talking about? Less than £1,000.
Yeah.
less than £1,000. How much is £1,000 here? Plus or minus, I think the exchange rate now should be about 250. So can you imagine a Nigerian legislator being tried for that amount of money? Is ridiculous. That cannot happen.
But does that?
But their system is such that your needs can easily be addressed. You can buy whatever you want to buy. There are other kinds of facilities, but that is lacking here. Until we now begin to look into the welfare package. That's what, for instance, in Lagos, the welfare package for judges in Lagos is reasonable, is fair. If a judge is corrupt in Lagos, he has chosen to be corrupt. Because the need for corruption is just not there. You're given an accommodation where you're going to retire from the bench. There's already a house assigned to you. You're given a brand new car. Your car is expected to be charging twice in a year and all of that. You're giving money to travel. You're giving money for research.
Can this dispense justice?
Certainly.
In that?
That's why Lagos is the role model for the other states. That's why the Lagos Judiciary is up there.
That's why some people also complain. Because if you're my employer or you're the one who doles out all those that looks like freebies to me, and I know full well when I leave office or the house I leave presently is being provided by you, and if a case comes up that involves you, how well?
It's a question of choice. I started by saying it's just one of discipline.
But it will be very hard.
No, it's not really. Once you told, there are some very good judges also in Lagos. Very good judges that have made pronouncement against government. Who have made pronouncement against government. The fact that these things have been provided does not mean that you must dance to the tune and the dictates of the appointer. You are at liberty if you follow the path of justice. Okay. And that's why the maiden of justice wears a blindfold.
Well, we'll cite some of your examples here, those who tweeted to us whilst attempting to proffer solutions to this. Well, Ikechi Kadibia says, the case of Peter Odile's order of perpetual injunction is mighty proof of the intense corruption in the judiciary. You subscribe to that?
Yes, I agree. Because why would you make an injunction in perpetuity? It raises a number of questions. It raises a number of issues. A man is to be investigated. More so, it is a settled principle of law that you cannot stop the agency saddled with enforcement from carrying out its responsibilities and duties. Once it has finished its work, the next phase is to now make it available for the agency that is responsible for prosecution to execute. So you can't make an order restraining the agency from carrying out its function.
But the order can always be appealed.
Yes, but not in perpetuity. Not when you make. Yes, it can be appealed, but not when an order is made in perpetuity.
So it was tied and locked.
Yes, that's the quarrel that a lot of people have. That why will you make such an order? Well, judges are human, and that's why sometimes some of us feel that we take corruption to an extent where judges now begin to get scared. They're human beings. They are pliable to making errors and mistakes. When a judge makes a mistake, the appellate court is there to review that mistake. So it's not all judicial errors or mistakes that must be attached or be seen as being induced or being a product of a corrupt infusion. It's not in all cases. Some instances, certain things would defy logic and human reasoning, and you now wonder why a judge will make this kind of pronouncement, haven't gone through law school, haven't gone through some sort of training. There are some questions that one is bound to, but judges are expected to also err. Justice Oputa said so, that the fact that we're judges doesn't make us superhumans, that we're bound to also err. And when we err, the appellate court is also there to also review the decision. Even the Supreme Court, unfortunately, if the Supreme Court errs, the only appeal that can have is to appeal to God. But there's also a process by which the Supreme Court can also review its own judgment. So there are mechanisms put in place or machinery put in place to address some of these issues.